The Accidental Discovery. Captain Sarah Chen looked out of her ship's window and frowned. The stars were all wrong. The planets were different colors. Even the sun looked strange. "This is definitely not Earth's solar system anymore," she said to her crew. Her engineer Tom was still working on the broken navigation computer. "Captain, I think our new faster-than-light engine worked too well. We jumped way too far." Sarah's ship, the Earth Explorer, was small. It had only 20 crew members. They were supposed to test the new engine for just a few hours. Instead, they had traveled thousands of light years in seconds. "Well, at least we're alive," said Maria, the ship's doctor. She was looking at her scanner. "But Captain, you need to see this." Sarah walked over to Maria's station. The scanner showed hundreds of massive ships surrounding them. These ships were 10 times bigger than anything Earth had ever built. "Are they pointing weapons at us?" Tom asked nervously. Before Sarah could answer, their communication system came alive. A deep, scary voice spoke in perfect English. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the territory of the Galactic Empire. Prepare to surrender or be destroyed." The crew looked at each other. Most people would be terrified, but Sarah just smiled. "Well, this is interesting," she said. "Open a channel, Tom." "Captain, are you sure?" Tom asked. "Of course. We came here by accident. Let's just explain." Sarah pressed the communication button. "Hello there. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Ship Explorer. We're really sorry about entering your space. Our navigation system broke. We got lost." There was a long silence. Then another voice spoke. This one sounded shocked. You are not afraid?" "Afraid of what?" Sarah asked. "You seem friendly enough. Nice ships, by the way, very impressive." On the bridge of the largest alien ship, Kotet, Commander Zex stared at his screen. In 300 years of service, no species had ever called the Imperial fleet friendly. Most aliens either begged for mercy or ran away screaming. Zex had purple skin and 4 arms. His species, the Vortax, were known for being fierce warriors. But right now, he was completely confused. "Sir," said his lieutenant, "what should we do with these humans?" Zex looked at the small human ship on his scanner. It was tiny compared to his fleet. The humans had primitive weapons and weak shields. They should be terrified. Instead, the human captain was asking questions. "So how long have you guys been traveling in space?" Sarah's voice came through the speakers. "Your technology looks amazing. Did you build all these ships yourselves?" Zex's second-in-command, a tall, thin alien named Krill, whispered, "Commander, they're either very brave or very stupid." "I'm not sure which," Zex replied quietly. Sarah continued talking. "We just invented faster-than-light travel last month. This is actually our first trip outside our solar system. What a coincidence that we met you." On another ship, Admiral Vex was also listening. He had been conquering planets for the Empire for 50 years. Every species he met showed proper fear and respect for Imperial power. These humans acted like they were meeting neighbors at a party. "Admiral," his aide said, "should we capture them?" Admiral Vex watched as one of the human crew members pressed his face against a window, clearly trying to get a better look at the alien ships. "Look at that," the human was saying. "Their ship design is so different from ours. I wonder how their engines work." The admiral made a decision. "Bring me Emperor Maltex immediately." Within minutes, a hologram of the Emperor appeared on the admiral's bridge. Emperor Maltex was enormous, even for his species. He had thick, gray skin and glowing red eyes. His voice could make mountains shake. "What is so important that you disturb my council meeting?" the Emperor demanded. "Your Majesty, we have encountered a new species. They call themselves humans. They show no fear of the Empire." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Impossible. All species fear the Empire. It is the natural order. Perhaps you should speak with them yourself, Your Majesty." Back on the human ship, Sarah was still trying to be friendly. "Is there someone in charge we could talk to? We'd love to learn more about your civilization. Maybe we could trade stories about our planets." Tom pulled Sarah aside. "Captain, maybe we should be more careful. These guys have really big guns." Sarah looked at the alien ships again. "Tom, they haven't shot at us yet. That's a good sign. Besides, they seem curious about us too." She was right. On dozens of alien ships, crews were staring at their screens in amazement. The humans were taking pictures of everything. One crew member was actually waving at the alien ships. Emperor Maltex's hologram appeared on Sarah's communication screen. His massive form filled the entire display. "I am Emperor Maltex, ruler of the Galactic Empire. You will explain your presence in my territory." Sarah looked at the Emperor with interest. "Wow, you're really big. Nice to meet you, Your Majesty. I'm Sarah Chen. We're from a planet called Earth. We got lost and ended up here by accident." The Emperor stared at her. No one had ever called him really big before. Usually, beings fell to their knees when they saw him. "You dare speak to me so casually?" he roared. "Oh, sorry," Sarah said. "How should I address you? We don't have emperors on Earth. Should I call you Sir or Your Majesty? I want to be polite." Admiral Vex whispered to Commander Zex, "She's asking for lessons in manners," while surrounded by our entire fleet. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "These humans, they are either the bravest species in the galaxy, or tut. He most foolish. Send the shadow hunters. Let us test their courage properly." The communication ended. Sarah turned to her crew. "Well, that went pretty well," she said. "I think we made a good first impression." Tom looked at her like she was crazy. "Captain, I think we might be in trouble." Sarah smiled. "Don't worry, Tom. How bad could it be?" The test of courage. The darkness came first. Space around the human ship turned black as night. Not the normal black of space, but something deeper, something that made the stars disappear, something that made experienced alien warriors close their eyes and pray. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Zex watched his instruments go crazy. Every sensor screamed warnings. Every alarm rang at once. "The shadow hunters are here," he whispered. Even saying their name made his forearms shake. The shadow hunters were not just aliens. They were nightmares made real. They were fear itself given form. No species had ever survived meeting them. Not the mighty Gorax warriors, not the psychic Mentari, not even the machine beings of Nexus Prime. But the humans were taking pictures. "Tom, are you getting this on video?" Captain Sarah asked excitedly. "The way space just changed color. It's incredible." Tom was holding his camera with shaking hands, but not from fear. He was shaking from excitement. "Captain, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Wait until Earth sees this footage." Dr. Maria was scanning the darkness with her instruments. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever's out there, it's using technology we can't even understand." Then came the sound. It started low, like thunder in the distance, but it grew louder and louder. It was the sound of 1,000 nightmares screaming at once. It was the sound that made civilization surrender before the battle even began. On alien ships throughout the fleet, trained soldiers fell to their knees. Some fainted. Others began crying like children. The sound hit the human ship like a wave. "Ow!" Sarah said, covering her ears. "That's really loud. Can someone turn down the volume?" Engineer Tom was checking his instruments. "Captain, it's not coming through our speakers. That sound is coming from outside the ship itself." "Well, it's giving me a headache," Dr. Maria complained. "Don't they have any manners? We're trying to have a conversation here." Emperor Maltex, watching from his throne room, could not believe what he was seeing. His most feared warriors were approaching the human ship, and the humans were complaining about noise. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The Shadow Hunter's scream has driven entire planets insane. These humans are treating it like loud music from a neighbor's house." His advisor, General Krex, was equally shocked. Your Majesty, perhaps these humans are deaf? Test them, the Emperor commanded. Send the hunters closer. The darkness around the human ship began to move. It twisted and turned, forming shapes that hurt to look at. From this darkness came the shadow hunters themselves. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, tall as buildings, with skin that seemed to be made of liquid night. Their eyes glowed like dying stars. Their claws could cut through the strongest metals in the galaxy. When they moved, reality itself seemed to bend around them. Most beings who saw a shadow hunter would lose their minds instantly. The lucky ones would just die from pure terror. But human crew member Jake pressed his face against the ship's window and said, "Whoa, they look like the dragons from our fantasy movies, but with more tentacles." His friend Lisa joined him at the window. "Yeah, but cooler. Look how they move through space without ships. Are those wings or energy fields?" Captain Sarah opened a communication channel. "Hello there, big fellows. Those are some impressive, what would you call those? Energy wing? We'd love to learn how you do that." On the Shadow Hunter command vessel, ancient destroyer Vex High received this message. He had lived for 3,000 years. He had destroyed 1,000,000 worlds. He had never, ever been called a big fellow before. His voice, when he spoke, could crack planets. "Mortals, you face the Shadow Hunters. Kneel before us or be consumed by eternal darkness." Sarah considered this for a moment. "Well, that's not very friendly. We just wanted to say hello. Are you always this grumpy, or are you having a bad day?" Vex High's ancient mind struggled to process this response. In 3 millennia, no one had ever asked him about his mood. "Silence, fool! Witness your doom!" The Shadow Hunters attacked. They came like a storm of living darkness. Their claws reached out to tear the human ship apart. Their screams grew louder, designed to drive the crew insane before killing them. But something strange happened. Instead of panicking, the humans started working together. Captain Sarah began giving orders in a calm, clear voice. "Tom, get us some distance from the big tentacle guy on the left. Maria, scan their energy patterns. Maybe we can figure out how they work. Jake and Lisa, see if you can boost our shield power." The crew moved with purpose. No fear, no panic, just people solving a problem. The Shadow Hunters had never experienced this before. Usually their prey was too terrified to fight back properly. "Captain," Tom called out, "their attacks seem to be mostly energy-based. If I reverse our shield polarity, it might give them a nasty surprise." "Do it," Sarah ordered. When the next Shadow Hunter struck the human ship, something unexpected happened. The hunter's own dark energy bounced back at him, sending him spinning through space. For the first time in his existence, Vex High felt something new: confusion. "What sorcery is this?" he roared. "Not sorcery," Sarah replied cheerfully. "Just good old human engineering. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've learned a few tricks." Dr. Maria had been studying the Shadow Hunters' movements. "Captain, I think I've figured out their pattern. They rely on fear to weaken their enemies first. When that doesn't work, they're not as dangerous as they seem." She was right. The Shadow Hunters were powerful, but they had never learned to fight enemies who fought back intelligently. They had always relied on terror. Humans, as it turned out, were very hard to terrify. "All right, team," Sarah said. "Let's show our new friends what humans can do when we put our minds to it." What happened next would be talked about in alien taverns for generations. The tiny human ship, using nothing but clever tactics and teamwork, began to outmaneuver the mighty Shadow Hunters. They didn't try to overpower them. Instead, they used the hunters' own energy against them. They predicted their movements. They worked together like parts of a single machine. When it was over, 3 Shadow Hunters were floating unconscious in space. The others had retreated into the darkness, more confused than hurt. Vex High stared at the small human ship in disbelief. "What? What are you?" Captain Sarah's voice came back, still friendly despite the battle. "We're humans. We're from Earth, and we really don't like bullies." Throughout the Imperial fleet, A million alien warriors sat in stunned silence. The Shadow Hunters, the Empire's most feared weapon, had been defeated by 20 humans in a small ship. Emperor Maltex rose from his throne. "Bring me these humans," he commanded. "I must see them for myself." On the human ship, Sarah turned to her crew. "Well, that was fun. I wonder what they'll try next." Tom looked at her in amazement. "Captain, do you realize what we just did? We beat their ultimate warriors." Sarah smiled. "Tom, we didn't beat them. We just showed them that fear is a choice, and we choose not to be afraid." The darkness around them began to fade. The stars returned, but everything had changed. For the first time in galactic history, someone had looked the Shadow Hunters in the eye and refused to blink. And across 1,000 worlds, alien beings began to whisper a new name with wonder and respect. Human, face to face with power. The invitation came as a golden beam of light that wrapped around the human ship like silk. But it wasn't really an invitation. It was a command that could move planets. "Humans," the voice of Emperor Maltex boomed through space itself. "You will come before me. Now." Captain Sarah felt the beam pulling her ship toward the massive Imperial flagship. She had two choices: fight against a force that could crush stars, or go along with it. She chose a third option. "Well," she announced to her crew, "looks like we're getting the VIP treatment. Everyone put on their best uniforms. We're about to meet the most powerful being in the galaxy." Tom stared at her. "Captain, this could be a trap. They might execute us." Sarah smiled that dangerous smile her crew knew so well. "Tom, they just gave us the ultimate honor. The Emperor himself wants to meet us. How many humans can say they've had dinner with a galactic ruler?" "We're not having dinner, Captain," Dr. Maria pointed out. "We might be the dinner." "Even better," Sarah laughed. "That would definitely make the history books." The golden beam carried them through space toward a ship so large it had its own weather systems. Cities could fit inside its hangar bays. Its weapons could destroy solar systems. As they got closer, the human crew pressed against the windows like tourists. "Look at that architecture," Jake exclaimed. "It's like they built a mountain and taught it how to fly." "The energy systems must be incredible," Lisa added. "How do they even power something that big?" Their excitement was being broadcast across the Imperial fleet. Alien commanders listened in disbelief as the humans discussed the Emperor's flagship like it was a museum exhibit. General Krex shook his head. "They should be begging for mercy. Instead, they're taking notes." The human ship was pulled into a hangar bay the size of a small country. As they landed, thousands of Imperial guards surrounded them. Each guard was armed with weapons that could level mountains. Their armor was made from metals harder than diamonds. Sarah and her crew stepped out of their ship. The Imperial guards expected to see terrified prisoners. Instead, they saw 20 humans looking around with wonder and curiosity. "Incredible craftsmanship," Sarah said, examining the hangar walls. "The engineering that went into this place must have taken centuries." An Imperial Guard captain approached them. His name was Zorth, and he had conquered 50 planets. His presence alone had made enemy armies surrender. "Humans," he growled in a voice like grinding stone, "you will follow me. Any attempt to escape will result in immediate death." Sarah nodded politely. "Of course, Captain. We appreciate the escort. This place is so big, we'd probably get lost without a guide." Zorth blinked in confusion. Prisoners were supposed to tremble when he spoke. These humans were thanking him. They began the long walk to the throne room. The path was designed to break spirits. It went through the Hall of Conquered Worlds, where holographic displays showed the destruction of 1,000 civilizations. Prisoners walking this path usually collapsed from despair before reaching the Emperor. But the humans were taking pictures. "This is like the ultimate history lesson," Tom whispered, recording everything. "Look at that battle footage. The tactical formations are fascinating." Dr. Maria was studying the displays with scientific interest. The diversity of species in this galaxy is amazing. I wonder if any of them developed differently than we expected. They passed through the chamber of infinite darkness, where the shadows themselves seemed alive and hungry. Most beings went insane in this room. Jake just commented, "Cool lighting effects, very dramatic." Finally, they reached the throne room. It was a space so vast that clouds formed near the ceiling. The walls were made of crystallized starlight. The floor was polished obsidian that reflected infinity. At the far end, on a throne carved from a single black hole, sat Emperor Maltex. He was enormous even by the standards of his giant race. His skin was like living metal. His eyes burned like the cores of dying stars. When he breathed, the entire room trembled. Around him stood his inner council, the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. Each one had destroyed civilizations. Each one commanded fleets that numbered in the millions. The humans walked forward with the casual confidence of tourists entering an impressive building. "Wow," Sarah said, her voice echoing in the vast space. "This is quite a place you have here, Your Majesty." "Very impressive. Must be expensive to heat, though." The Emperor stared at her. In 10,000 years of rule, no one had ever commented on his heating bills. "Humans," his voice shook the throne room like an earthquake. "You stand before Maltex the Eternal, destroyer of worlds, crusher of civilizations. Kneel before my power." Sarah looked around at her crew, then back at the Emperor. "With respect, Your Majesty, humans don't really do the kneeling thing. We prefer to meet people as equals. Would a respectful nod work instead?" The inner council gasped. General Vox, who had personally destroyed entire star systems, whispered, "They refuse to kneel. This has never happened before." Emperor Maltex leaned forward on his throne. "Do you not understand who I am? I have ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia. I have crushed empires older than your sun. I am death itself given form." Captain Sarah considered this seriously. "That's quite a resume, Your Majesty. Very impressive. On Earth, we'd probably make you the CEO of a major corporation." "What?" the Emperor asked slowly. "Is a CEO?" "Chief Executive Officer. Someone who runs a really big organization. Though I guess Galactic Emperor sounds more exciting than CEO of the Galaxy Corporation." For the first time in 1,000 years, Emperor Maltex was genuinely confused. These humans spoke to him like he was a person, not a god, not a force of nature, just a very successful person with a demanding job. Admiral Vex, standing beside the throne, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, perhaps a demonstration of power would help these humans understand their position." The Emperor nodded. "Observe, humans, the fate of those who displease me." A holographic display showed a planet being destroyed. The world cracked open like an egg. Billions of lives ended in seconds. The display showed city after city being consumed by fire and darkness. The humans watched with serious attention. When it ended, Sarah spoke quietly. "That's terrible. All those people. They had families, dreams, children who would never grow up." The Emperor expected fear. Instead, he heard sadness. Dr. Maria stepped forward. "Your Majesty, with respect, why? Why destroy an entire world? What did they do that was so terrible?" They refused to surrender," the Emperor said, suddenly feeling defensive. "So you killed everyone?" Tom asked. "Even the children who had nothing to do with the decision?" Something strange happened in the throne room. For the first time, the Emperor felt the need to explain himself. "It is the way of the galaxy," he said, but his voice was less certain. "The strong rule. The weak obey. This is natural law." Sarah shook her head. "On Earth, we learned something different. We learned that real strength, Sarah, Is from protecting the weak, not destroying them. You speak nonsense, General Krex interrupted. Power is everything. Without power, you are nothing. Is that what you really believe? Dr. Maria asked. Because we've seen your power. It's incredible. But what have you built with it? What have you created? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Emperor Maltex realized he had no answer. In 10,000 years of conquest, he had destroyed countless civilizations. But what had he built? What legacy would he leave besides fear? Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the throne room. Emergency alert, a mechanical voice announced. The Void Swarm has breached the outer defenses. All ships to battle stations. The Inner Council looked terrified. The Void Swarm was the Empire's greatest enemy, creatures from outside the galaxy that consumed entire star systems. General Vox turned to the Emperor. Your Majesty, we must retreat to the inner systems. The capital defenses cannot hold. Emperor Maltex stood from his throne, his massive form towering over everyone. For the first time in the conversation, he looked truly frightening. No retreat, he commanded. We fight. Then he turned to the humans. Your test begins now, humans. Will you face death with the same courage you showed my shadow hunters? Or will you reveal your true nature and beg for mercy? Captain Sarah looked at her crew. 20 humans against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy. She smiled. Your Majesty, she said, we didn't come this far just to give up now. If you're fighting to protect innocent lives, then we're with you. The Emperor stared at her. You would risk death for beings you have never met? That's what humans do, Sarah replied simply. We stand up for others, even when it's dangerous. For the first time in 10,000 years, Emperor Maltex felt something that he had forgotten existed. Hope. Then let us go to war, humans, and let us see what 20 beings from Earth can do against the darkness between stars. The throne room shook as enemy ships entered the system. The final battle was about to begin. And for the first time in galactic history, humans and the Empire would fight side by side. The unlikely alliance, the Void Swarm, came like death itself. They weren't ships. They weren't creatures. They were something worse. Living hunger given form. Black holes with teeth. Emptiness that devoured light, matter, and hope. Through the throne room's massive windows, Emperor Maltex watched his greatest fear become reality. The enemy that had haunted his nightmares for 1,000 years had finally found his capital. How many? He asked quietly. General Vox checked his instruments with shaking hands. 40,000 void entities, Your Majesty. Maybe more. They're eating our outer defense stations. The display screen showed the horror. Imperial battle stations that had stood for centuries were simply vanishing. Not destroyed, consumed, erased from existence as if they had never been built. Captain Sarah stepped beside the Emperor, her small human form dwarfed by his massive presence. Your Majesty, what exactly are we fighting? The end of everything, Maltex replied, his voice heavy with ancient fear. They come from the space between galaxies. They consume all matter, all energy, all life. When they finish here, they will eat your Earth too. Sarah's crew gathered around the tactical displays, studying the approaching enemy with the same calm focus they had shown everything else. Interesting, Dr. Maria observed. They seem to absorb energy weapons. Look, when your ships fire at them, they just get bigger. Tom was analyzing the enemy movement patterns. Captain, they're not random. There's a pattern to how they attack. They're actually quite predictable. Emperor Maltex stared at the humans in disbelief. His greatest generals were panicking, but these 20 beings from a primitive world were taking notes. Predictable? Admiral Vex gasped. They have destroyed 100 civilizations. They are unstoppable. Nothing is unstoppable, Sarah said calmly. Everything has a weakness. We just need to find it. The battle began. Imperial fleets that could shatter moons opened fire on the void swarm. Weapons that burned hotter than stars struck the approaching darkness. It did nothing. The void entities absorbed every attack and grew stronger. "All ships, fall back," General Krex commanded. "Prepare the final defense line." But Captain Sarah was already moving. "Tom, get us back to our ship, now." "Captain, where are you going?" Emperor Maltex demanded. "To do what humans do best," Sarah replied with that dangerous smile. "Improvise." The human ship Earth Explorer launched from the Imperial flagship like a tiny dart shot from a giant's bow. Around it, massive Imperial warships were retreating in panic. But the little human ship flew straight toward the void swarm. "Captain," Tom said nervously, "our weapons can't even scratch these things. What's the plan?" Sarah was studying the enemy through their view screen. Maria was right. They absorb energy. But what if we gave them something they couldn't digest? She opened a communication channel to the Imperial fleet. "Emperor Maltex, this is Captain Chen. I need you to do exactly what I say when I say it. Human, you cannot fight the void swarm with one small ship." "We're not going to fight them," Sarah replied. "We're going to give them indigestion." The Earth Explorer dove into the heart of the void swarm. Creatures of living darkness reached out to consume it, but Sarah kept the ship moving in a complex pattern. "Jake, Lisa, overload our engine core, but don't let it explode yet. Maria, reverse the polarity on all our systems. Tom, I need you to broadcast a feedback signal on all base frequencies." Her crew worked with practiced efficiency, even as nightmare creatures pressed against their hull. "Captain," Dr. Maria called out, "I'm reading massive energy fluctuations in the void entities. Whatever you're doing, it's confusing them." Sarah grinned. "That's the idea. You see, these things have been eating normal matter and energy for millions of years. They know how to digest it, but we're about to feed them something completely different." She opened the channel to Emperor Maltex again. "Your Majesty, in exactly 30 seconds, I need every ship in your fleet to fire at us. Not at the void swarm. At us." "What?" the Emperor roared. "That will destroy your ship." "Trust me," Sarah said. "Humans have been surprising people all day. Why stop now?" Emperor Maltex faced the hardest decision of his long life. Trust these strange beings who had already done the impossible, or watch his empire die. "All ships," he commanded. "Target the human vessel. Prepare to fire on my signal." General Vox stared at him. "Your Majesty, they will be destroyed." "Perhaps," Maltex replied. "Or perhaps they will show us one more miracle." The Earth Explorer reached the center of the void swarm. Hundreds of hungry entities surrounded it, ready to devour the small ship and its crew. "Now!" Sarah shouted. Tom triggered the overloaded engine. Maria reversed all their systems. Jake and Lisa sent the feedback signal screaming through space. And Emperor Maltex gave the order. "Fire!" Every weapon in the Imperial fleet fired at once. Not at the void swarm, but at the tiny human ship in the center of it all. What happened next defied everything the galaxy knew about physics. The reversed polarity systems on the human ship turned all that incoming energy inside out. Instead of destroying the Earth Explorer, the weapons fire became something new, something the universe had never seen before. The void entities tried to absorb it, as they had absorbed everything else, and then they began to scream. It was a sound like reality tearing apart. The creatures of living darkness writhed in agony as they tried to digest energy that fought back, energy that refused to be consumed, energy that turned their own hunger against them. One by one, the void entities began to collapse, not destroyed, but satisfied. Full for the first time in their existence, they stopped consuming and began to sleep. Within minutes, the entire void swarm had gone dormant, floating peacefully in space like sleeping whales. The Earth Explorer sat in the middle of it all, battered but intact. "Captain," Tom said in amazement, "we're alive. How are we alive?" Sarah was checking their systems. Because sometimes the best way to win a fight is to feed your enemy exactly what they don't expect. Emperor Maltex's voice came over the communication channel, filled with wonder. Human, Sarah Chen. What did you do? We gave them a taste of human stubbornness, Sarah replied. Turns out, even cosmic horror has trouble digesting pure determination mixed with reversed polarity. Dr. Maria was scanning the sleeping void entities. Captain, they're not hostile anymore. I think they were just hungry. Now that they're fed, they seem almost peaceful. Across the Imperial fleet, 1,000,000 alien warriors sat in stunned silence. The enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for eons was now floating quietly in space, no longer a threat. Emperor Maltex transported himself to the human ship. When he materialized on their bridge, his massive form filled half the room. Humans, he said quietly. In one day, you have done what my empire could not do in 1,000 years. You have shown me that there is another way besides conquest and fear. Captain Sarah looked up at the towering emperor. Your Majesty, we didn't come here to change anything. We just got lost and tried to be friendly. And in doing so, Maltex replied, you have changed everything. He knelt down, bringing his great head level with Sarah's. I offer you and your people a place in my empire, not as subjects, but as equals, as teachers. Sarah smiled that warm human smile. That's very kind, Your Majesty. But Earth prefers to be friends rather than citizens. We'd be happy to visit, though. Maybe set up some trade routes, share some stories. The Emperor nodded slowly. Friends. Yes, I think I would like to learn about friendship. As preparations began to send the humans home, Tom asked the question everyone was thinking. Captain, what happens when Earth finds out about all this? About the galaxy, the Empire, everything? Sarah looked out at the vast Imperial fleet, at the sleeping void entities, at the Emperor who was learning to smile. Well, Tom, she said, I guess we'll have some interesting stories to tell. Emperor Maltex overheard this and felt a chill of anticipation. Stories? How many of your people are there on Earth? Oh, Sarah said casually. About 8 billion, give or take a few million. The Emperor's eyes widened. 8 billion beings like these. 8 billion creatures who treated cosmic horrors like interesting puzzles and galactic emperors like friendly neighbors. General Vox whispered, Your Majesty, perhaps we should send a diplomatic gift to Earth. Something very nice, very respectful. Emperor Maltex nodded quickly. Yes, something very, very nice. As the Earth Explorer prepared to jump back to their home system, Captain Sarah opened one final communication channel. Your Majesty, this has been quite an adventure. Thank you for the hospitality. If you ever need help with anything, Earth will remember its friends. The human ship disappeared in a flash of light, leaving the Empire forever changed. Emperor Maltex stood in his throne room, looking out at a galaxy that suddenly seemed full of possibilities instead of enemy. Your Majesty, Admiral Vex asked, what are your orders? The Emperor smiled, a real smile, not the cruel expression he had worn for millennia. Send word to every world in the Empire, he commanded. From this day forward, we protect instead of conquer. We build instead of destroy, and we prepare to welcome our new friends from Earth. In the depths of space, the void entities slept peacefully, their hunger finally satisfied. And somewhere in a small solar system, 20 humans were about to give their species the surprise of a lifetime. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity.